Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
And I'm your host, David. Tonight we're doing our recap of season 6. But before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct. As I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we are great, we are awesome, we're a good time, and we will be trying to get all the way through season six, just so that we can move on to season seven and some other things, and then, of course, start the new year as we've planned. Hopefully, we
Right.
do it, but you know how it goes. Sometimes we get too into things, and we don't want to cheap you on enjoying time with us. So there you go. Um, Now, before we dive completely into season six, do you want to give our kind of weekly check in here? So, David, how has your week been?
Week's been good. Picked up the new Metroid Prime game this week. It finally came out after 18 years of a hiatus. Finally, they had a new one come out. It's a great game. I've been enjoying it. Um, I'm almost done, so it's sad. No, you're near the end, so
Game finally
the
came out. You did it.
anticipation of
You
being
played it.
yeah, and it's done. It's like, oh man. I got it Thursday night, so I've been playing it pretty steadily since then. Today's Sunday. So when you and I went to go see the new Knives Out movie, it's like, all right, gotta take a break, go hang out with people and be social. So yeah, that's that. I'm currently at the house I'm staying at in San Antonio while I've been working the going back to the old mattress job for a bit. It's the store that they have need is in San Antonio, so I'm down here at the company house for a couple weeks. So, um, but yeah,
Okay.
about halfway done with Count of Monte Cristo, as I mentioned to you the other day. That book is so long, and it's amazing how long it is. But yeah, I'm a
And
little over
and
halfway now.
and as
So
we've talked, as we talked, not here on the show, but we've had conversations obviously elsewhere. But it's it's wonderful to read such a long book. In like when you think about this was their only source of entertainment back then. Like if you were privileged enough to know how to read,
mhm.
then I mean, there wasn't anything else, right? There wasn't a TV, whatever. So, and like you said, you pointed out a lot of these books were written when they would be released in newspapers and stuff. So the weekly or the monthly edition of whatever the local newspaper, and they would have these things out. So it made sense that the books ended up being so long
Mhm.
because development and stuff takes time, and then of course you've got to have enough material to pad your readers, make it worth it
Right.
and everything. So which led to complexity and depth of character and all these wonderful things that we don't really have in um books and even television and stuff of today. Not in
Right.
all of them. I mean, I would say that there are some shows out there that are at least trying, but as we were speculating, a Count of Monte Cristo TV series, um, it would be awesome, but only if they properly executed it and didn't leave things out. But as
Right.
we know, no one would do that. Not these days. It would so much of that book would be cut
Well,
to make a
it
show.
was it's been funny reading it, and you and I talking about like the movie, because really the movie does change a number of things. Not
Yes, it
because
does.
it's bad. I mean, the movie's not like the Jim Caviezel movie is what I'm talking about. It's
Mhm.
not a bad movie, but there were so many details that the book has, and they were just like, you know what? We're not going to pretend to do a one for one retelling. Let's get the basic skeleton of the story, redress it with a simpler tale so we can get through it in an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, I think
So
the
they
movie
make
has an hour and 35, 40 minute runtime.
yeah, like it's not a faithful recreation of the book, but insofar that you got the skeleton of the story, that's fine. Um, but the detail of the maneuvering and the plotting is so much more intense in the book, of what Edmond Dantes, the Count of Monte Cristo, what he's doing. Right now, I'm at the part in the book where Villefort, he once had, I don't know if it's an affair you want to call it, or like just like he was basically, he got Madame Danglars before she was married to Danglars pregnant, and they went to go like have the kid killed because it was of course a scandal, but the kid was saved by some other character and raised by this other character, but that kid turned out to be a bad kid. He's terrible. And he just was rediscovered by the Count in this really manipulative plot. And it's a dinner party. Like the dinner party's about to begin. I'm like, oh, I can't wait. Like all these characters that are supposed to have these secrets are being forced to confront each other. So I look forward to that scene next. But yeah, anyway, that's my week. You and I went and saw the new Knives Out movie.
The new Knives Out movie, which was Wake Up Dead. Is that what it was called?
Wake Up Dead Man.
Wake Up Dead Man. Yes. Great movie. I enjoyed it. I'm sure if I watched it again, I might find some things to, more heavily nitpick, critique, whatever. But for a first time viewing, I enjoyed it. I've loved all the Knives Out movies that I've seen. I think I've missed one.
There's 3 total. This is the 3rd one.
Well, I know that there's 3 in the actual Knives Out series, but then there are other movies in this same vein that are like around it, like complimentary films. And like we saw a preview for one, or a promo, whatever it's called, the Kevin Branagh film where they were on the train.
Oh, that's the Agatha Christie books. He did 3 Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot movies. Those are technically their own thing, but yes, they are murder mysteries like the Knives Out series is. Yes.
Yeah. So I intend to go and find those and watch those as well as the one of the Knives Out that I've missed. So whatever. But I really enjoy those. And as I said, last night or whenever that was that last night?
Two nights ago.
Two nights ago. The greatest thing about those movies is the fact that they have stellar actors performing a well-written script. Normally you get one or the other. It's rare that you get both. And in these, I'm so glad that the actors that they have picked for this have, understood the assignment, as they say, and they've really brought their A game. I think Glenn Close did a fantastic job in this movie. Daniel Craig did a fantastic job. There really wasn't anybody that I was like upset with.
Josh Brolin portrayal is like nefariously evil. He is something else.
and watching him come from things like the Deadpool movies, obviously the Marvel being Thanos, he's Gurney Halleck in Dune. He's got all of these, at least recently. I mean, I know that his body of work is far longer than the movies that I just named, but watching him in those and then go to this, it's pretty awesome. And he definitely has the right temperament for the character that he plays. He delivers an excellent performance in this. Again, no one turned in a bad performance. Every person that you wanted to hate made sense. It worked. It worked for me. So I really enjoyed it. Now again, that's first time viewing. As with everything, I always say that you should watch it, at least one more time to see, how it holds up still. So we'll get there. We might even talk about Knives Out, the whole series, one night, just as a kind of a cast off episode. So if you're interested at all, let us know and we can do that. But we're not here to talk about all that tonight. Tonight we're here to talk about season 6 of Deep Space Nine, which season 6, I will have to say, based upon my memory of us doing the show, I think season 6 was our favorite. In going back and listening to some clips of our discussions of especially the early part of season 6, I think that this worked out for us. This is the one that had the story arc, the long arc here, was how season 6 started. Remember, in season 5, it ends with them losing Deep Space Nine. They've done
Mhm.
the mass evacuation, and now season 6, we see Captain Cisco and company is stationed at Starbase 375 under Admiral Ross. There's been a kind of a shaking up of the command structure. Ben gets a promotion. He's like an adjutant under Admiral Ross.
Mhm.
Jadzia takes over as the captain of the Defiant and is running missions. And yeah, they're doing all these strike runs and things like that. While as we see in the next few episodes from A Time to Stand, Rocks and Shoals, Sons and Daughters, and Behind the Lines, these are episodes that are all about what's going on, respectively, for our Federation officers and for life on the station. Kira and Odo are running the station, but also are running the resistance.
Right.
Gul Dukat, the female changeling, Wayun 6, I think it's Wayun 6, are, in charge of the station basically and are doing terrible things under the guise of being, a happy Dominion family.
Hmm.
And Jake is there because Jake didn't get on with any of the evacuees.
Because
And
of course you didn't.
yeah, yeah, and he's basically using his position as the emissary's son to so like to basically to save him. The Dominion's not going to hurt him because the Bajorans are now their new allies, and the
Right.
Bajorans, a deeply religious people, still view Ben as the emissary, and they're not going to let someone hurt the emissary's kid. So there you go.
Right.
Um, yeah, but these first 6 episodes, from A Time to Stand to Sacrifice of Angels, where we see them kind of, where that's not kind of, but that's the one where they retake the station. Those episodes for us were highlights. We loved them. And so now that we're looking back, do you still feel that way when you consider this opening arc?
Um, yeah, I guess the thing that was interesting about that 6 episode arc is what the characters Kira and Odo are placed in a weird spot of having to pretend to be kind of okay with slash subservient to the Dominion, Wayun and the others. Jake in his role of being a Federation news service guy behind enemy lines is just kind of awkward. I do feel like, again, poor Jake, like they were trying to have him do something, and even this just kind of like, I don't know. Let me put it this way: because this is a show that was on regular nightly television, it doesn't get as edgy. It's Star Trek. It's not an edgy show. It's not meant to be, like
Well,
dirty and dark and like. Let me put it this way: this should be the deepest point for our crew, like the darkest hole, the darkest moment. They've lost the station. Jake has been
separated
captured.
from his father, basically. For all
Yeah,
intents and purposes, he's captured,
yeah.
right? If
Kira
he
and Odo should like be on the outs in the sense of like they're not just like allowed to continue to exist. They should be like under lock and key, basically. Maybe not Odo. Maybe Odo has earned
Well,
his.
so just to help you out here a little bit, that is kind of what we're seeing here. This is the low point for the Federation. They have lost their foothold in the Bajoran sector. They no longer control Deep Space Nine. Ben has been separated from his son. Kira is now kind of a figurehead in the Bajoran militia because the Dominion
Right,
has taken over all of that, but they're not wanting to, um, you know, they're wanting to keep up appearances. And then, they have this ruling council, which is Dukat and Wayun, and they ask Odo to join.
right,
And Kira is against Odo joining because she's like, if you join, it grants them another level of legitimacy. And that's not what we want to have happen. But Odo makes the counter argument of, but I'll be on the inside working for you, which
right,
initially, it works when he does join the council. Initially,
right.
that works, but then he falls under the influence of the
The
female
female
changeling.
changeling.
They
Yes.
start spending a lot of time together. They, have sex. They do all these things, and it quickly, pulls Odo away. He begins to distance himself from Kira, from the resistance movement. She's very influential with Odo,
Right.
and not in a good way. This ruins his relationship with Kira for a bit, and the Federation, for their part, still trying to do strike missions and things like that. They're not having the best success, but they
Right.
finally get a plan to punch through
Right.
and take back Deep Space Nine. Now, this is hot on the heels of the discovery of a way to potentially take down the self-replicating, cloaking mines that have been laid out in front of
The wormhole.
the wormhole.
Right.
So we also have Zial's death in this arc.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This, really unravels Dukat, and it causes, Garak to suffer as well. As we know, he and Zial had been maintaining a relationship. So we do see these weird, like there are some falls for characters, Garak, Odo, Kira a bit too, but this whole framework of a 6 episode story being told here was unheard of, was absolutely unheard of. As you said, this was the 90s. This was an early attempt at serialization in a series and a franchise that didn't really do that. They were used to kind of hitting the reset button every episode. Next Generation is obviously famous for that, beyond your occasional 2-parter. What they did here with these 6 episodes not only proved that true serialization was viable on TV,
Right.
but that it worked for your storytelling. And I really credit this block more than anything as being heavily influential to a lot of writers and producers who went on to do shows like The Expanse, the revamped Battlestar Galactica, all of it, because a lot of their writers and directors who worked on these shows in particular went on to do those shows. Ron Moore is probably the most recognized.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at, just to be clear, is, and this is also in part because the show's already out. We already know how many seasons there are, for example, so we know roughly kind of what to expect. What I'm getting at is that yes, it takes 6 episodes for them to finally come back to the station and retake it, but in the sense that we know that that's going to happen, let me put it this way. You just mentioned Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica is a perfect example. Because Battlestar Galactica is a story that, it doesn't necessarily reset to the same starting conditions. Most shows, like on a Star Trek, at the end of the episode, things kind of reset. You could skip one episode and come to the next, and you won't have missed any of the story. So because Star Trek in general fits that description, even though Deep Space Nine is pushing that with the more serialized storytelling, it still means that they don't go to places with the characters that are more permanent. Like Zial dying is probably the most permanent thing that actually happens in this 6-episode plot line. That fair?
I mean, yes, but it also leads to other overarching plots, like because of Zial's death, we get the destabilization of Dukat, which then we get later episodes where we see the ramifications of that when he and Cisco are stranded on that moon, I think it is, and Dukat is completely undone, and we know that it's because of Zial. In fact, when the Federation officers retake Deep Space Nine in Sacrifice the Angels, the reason they were able to capture Dukat is because he would not leave Zial's body.
Right.
And that's how they found him, was clutching her. So
that's a change. That's definitely fair.
Yeah.
That's a change. What I'm getting at is that in like Battlestar Galactica or shows like that, The Walking Dead, take how many shows you want, with the serialized storytelling, they push through darker elements in permanent ways. And I'm sad that Deep Space Nine is trying to straddle both sides of that fence, and they do a good job in many ways. But it is unfortunate in some ways that it isn't a full-on serialized story at that point, because you could have really dug deep into some of those elements. However, you would have lost other things. There are other great episodes that still come. It's not like this is like the last time the show was good or anything. I'm not trying to say that.
No.
Yeah,
but this also just brings back the point of the fact that it was unheard of in the 90s for shows to do that. And really, the reason that this show was able to do it is because it was kind of forgotten about. It's like the unwritten story of Deep Space Nine is the fact that, network execs and so forth really just stopped paying attention to what they were doing over here until it was way too late. And it's kind of like they just, plucked their head up and were like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Right.
What's going on over here? And it's like, too late. We're already like 8 episodes in, bro. We got to keep it going.
Right.
No, and like I said, they pushed the envelope as far as they dared in this series, and in particular in this season. And then it led to those other shows. Like, again, we said Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, The Expanse, The Walking Dead, Lost, all these shows that came after this was kind of like these. And again, these same writers and directors and creative individuals, they went on from here. This was first.
Right.
And then they went from here and they brought that into other shows and proved that it was a sustainable model. And that's how we got a lot of those things today. So whenever anyone, it's like, oh, it's a shame they couldn't do this like they did on, whatever. It's like, well, just so you know, this was first. They wouldn't have been able to do that thing you appreciate until they, cut their teeth here.
Right.
They learned it here.
Right.
So that's what I really love about all of it.
Right. And that's totally fair. I just want to be clear. Yeah. Like, that's my critique is like, this is the first time they ever did the thing. Yeah, okay, well then,
the first, this is it. This is the first time. Like you can really use this series as kind of like your focal point. Then, if you want to look at where television changed and where, especially when it came to action dramas and serialization and all that kind of stuff, this is mainly it. There weren't other shows that did this. Now, I'm not trying to say that this show is solely responsible. There were a couple of other things that happened around then that also brought this about. The writer's strike, the availability of streaming of shows on platforms like Hulu and Netflix and Amazon and so forth. All of these things contributed to this need to have a certain level of continuity, but really, having a clear patterned example of doing it, this show is where we can get that credit.
Right. Yeah.
Now, moving on into season 6, this really helped us out because we discovered like 6 episodes right there, to kind of cement the fact that was it. The 7th episode is a kind of fun, lighthearted one. This is You Are Cordially Invited. This is where Worf and Jadzia get married.
Yeah.
And we get to meet Lady Sirella, who is Martok's wife, a taskmaster if ever there was one.
Right.
We get to see what a Klingon bachelor party is really like, not just the rumors. And we get to see what Jadzia's idea of a bachelor party is like, which is, wild to say the least. So I'm going to go ahead and start it and just say my favorite parts of this episode were, 1, meeting Lady Sirella and then listening to Martok describe his relationship with Lady Sirella.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my favorite parts.
Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely Klingon. Klingon, like, let me put it this way. We get so many Klingon warriors and Klingon this, Klingon that, and we do see female Klingons, don't be wrong or anything, but like, the matriarch of a family, this is probably the first time
of a major house. She's not just the matriarch of any. She is the Lady Sirella. And as we find out through her making Jadzia recite the history of the bloodline, she's royalty. She is the descendant of a long line of royals, although Jadzia throws in some contentious remarks about the royal family.
Yeah, you're descended from royalty through the concubine that royalty
you're basically a bunch of royal horse. So that's pretty much what she says.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do remember the one critique I had this episode is that it felt like the climactic confrontation is Sirella and Dax, like they're not getting along. And then Cisco tells Dax, like, you agreed to do this, so blah. And then they're getting married, and it's like the confrontation was like solved off screen almost. All right, fine. It's not like Dax and Cirilla sat down and had some conversation about, I'm sorry. That's not how Klingons do it. So I'm not sure how they would have done it, but I feel like they missed a moment of making that work. Like, what would that have been like? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, you're right. There was not a come to Cirilla moment really for
yes.
Jadzia. She basically kind of goes into this whole how dare Cirilla make me do these things? I'm 300 and something years old, and I have done this and I have done that. And it's Cisco who calls her out on it. He's like,
Right.
you didn't do anything. You
have the memories of the person.
Yeah, that was Curzon. That was the other people. You are just a girl to Cirilla. She's not looking at you as your many lifetimes. She's looking at you as the individual trying to join her house.
Right.
You know what Klingons are about. You know how they are. So either you really love Worf and you're willing to do this because it's what he wants, or you don't.
Right.
And he calls her out on it. And I love that scene too between them, because he yells at her and then he's like, and you do it because you love him. And he's like, and you do love him. And like the way he breaks her down, and he's like, you can't say that you don't. So get with the program. And then she does, but you're right. We don't see where she goes to Cirilla and properly performs the ritual and earns the status. We just know that it happened at some point, and then at the time of the actual wedding, Cirilla acknowledges it when she performs the wedding ceremony.
Yes.
Which is also another thing I found very interesting, that Cirilla is the one who performs the ceremony. They don't have a Klingon officiant or anything like that. It's the head of the house, the matriarch, who performs the ceremony and welcomes you in. That's her domain. Not even Martok can, say whatever.
Right.
So he even tells Worf that.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just reading the Wikipedia article here as we talk, and it reminded me, once the ceremony is complete, O'Brien and Bashir enthusiastically attack the couple with padded staves, both in keeping with Klingon wedding tradition, and to avenge themselves for the hardships they have endured. Because the bachelor party, woohoo! Yeah, they gotta sweat it out.
First, you gotta sweat it out and sing. Then you're not allowed to drink or eat, but they lay out a lavish smorgasbord that's there for you to look at, to tempt you.
Right.
You're not allowed to touch it.
Right.
And then when the wedding is called off the first time, the first thing they do is go to Quark's and order up a massive amount of food. And right before they chow down, Cisco intervenes and stops them.
Again, the fact that the Klingons are so well developed, like that totally makes sense. That's totally a bachelor party for a Klingon. It's not about carousing and pleasure seeking and get it all out one last time. It's, we're gonna go into the belly of the beast and we're gonna prove to each other that we're battle hardened brothers in arms. That makes so much sense. So I love that. That's how it turns out bachelor parties are for the Klingons, are these intense trials of like initiation. It's hazing, the most intense hazing for any fraternity you can think of. Yeah.
And it just makes so many other things about Klingon life make sense, because we've seen Klingon parties. We've seen where they get together for things, and it is a lot of carousing and drinking and fighting and just kind of cutting loose overall. But when it comes to anything, if you notice, anything serious with the Klingons, it's always a very austere, very stark process, heavily laden in ritual, and I like that is how they've set up this culture. Like, we have our parties and we have our fun and we celebrate post battle and whatever else, but the marriage ceremonies, religious ceremonies, any kind of honorifics that are bestowed upon us, that is a very, very intense, severe moment. So I think that they did a great job setting us up with that and giving us these insights into Klingon culture. We also get to see Alexander, who seems to be, fully accepted now by Worf.
Yep.
And now he's a part of the House of Martok as well.
It's crazy
as
to
Worf's son.
think. I mean, do Klingons just grow up faster? Because I don't feel like it's been 18. It's not been 18 years since.
No, it hasn't been. And I have always operated under the assumption that their development is more accelerated.
It's
Because
faster, and maybe
it's just amped up, like because we hear the story of how Worf killed someone when he was a kid.
Right.
There's also an episode of Next Generation when Worf's parents come onto this to the Enterprise, and they tell a story of having to go and pick Worf up from school, and Worf was, supposedly I think 6 or 7 years old at the time, and he beat up like 5 kids who were all, in their early teens.
Right.
So there's stuff like that. I think that there is an accelerated development of them,
physical
and even
acceleration.
physical, because even when the show starts, and I'm talking about Next Generation, I believe that Worf is supposed to be 24 years old, but he certainly looks older. I think that's how it's supposed to be. I'll go back and check that, but I believe that the story is that Worf is about 20 between 22 and 24 when he's the ensign on the Enterprise.
And he's already on the bridge. Nice.
Yeah, he's an ensign on the in security detail under Tasha.
Right.
At that time. So I think they do grow up faster. And I mean, we've seen Alexander's accelerated process or progress. We met him when he was supposed to be 3 years old. Was the first time we ever saw Alexander.
That's true.
During the latter seasons, 6 and 7 of Next Gen, he's probably, I think he's supposed to be around like 8 or 9, but I think the actor who was playing him was about 13, 14.
Right.
And then of course we see Alexander here in Deep Space Nine, and he's supposed to be 18, but he definitely seems older.
Yeah.
A bit older. So I think that tracks.
Yeah. All right, we got to move on.
Now, I think that we can skip a few episodes here. After this, we have Resurrection, which is where we see a return of
Vedic
Bareil, but it's not Bareil, it's Mirror Universe Bareil. Got to mention the fact that the Intendant comes back. We love Intendant Kira. Everybody loves Intendant Kira, but that's pretty much the only thing about that episode that you need to know. There's nothing here that deals with the overarching plot. It was just fun to see evil Bareil and Intendant Kira again. That's it.
Yeah, especially because it's been 3 seasons since we've seen Bareil. Talk about a blast from the past.
Yeah. We move into statistical probabilities. This is where the enhanced people come back to the station, and
this is the first time we see them.
Oh, this is the first time. Yes, that's right. Yes. So this is after Julian has been outed as one of them,
right?
But he's fully functional. Right. So then they bring a group of them to the station in order to hope that he can form some kind of connection and work with these people, which he does, much to the dismay of Sisko and the rest of them, because not only does it lead to Julian feeling like he is vastly superior, but he projects that the thing that the Federation should do is surrender.
Yeah, to the Dominion. He spirals way out of control. Yeah,
he becomes a paranoid conspiracy theorist, which is not fun for anybody. So that's it. We get some memorable characters. These new, mutants.
The best part, if I remember correctly, it's in this episode. They talk about how they dressed the older one of them, the old kind of tubby one, up as an admiral, and
that's not this one.
Well, I'm saying it, but if you remember, they talk about it in this episode, but then it's in the next episode where you actually see them do it. Where they at the beginning of the next time we see them, you don't recognize him at first because he's dressed as an admiral. He just keeps saying, like, "Show me to
That's a stupid question," is what he says whenever someone asks him anything.
Right.
That's a stupid question, and they believe it. So.
And that's how they introduce themselves in the season 7 episode where they come back. And I'm just bringing that up because I remember being like, "Wait a minute, who is that?" And then they reveal themselves. They're like, "Ah." Anyway, But yeah, this is
And
an
then we
interesting episode because the idea that the Dominion is is destined to win is a
win the
bit
short
much.
term, but the long term, the Federation will win. That's what their projection was.
Yeah.
If we surrender now, we'll save billions of lives. But then eventually the insurrection will start, and within 50 years, we'll throw off the yoke of our oppressors. And it's
Right.
just like, what, you want us to surrender now so we can win 50 years later? Are you crazy?
So I think I might have said this at the time, but I'll say it now. Um, the Foundation books by Isaac Asimov are the idea is that in the far, far, far distant future, mathematics has gotten to the point where it can predict human events, and the idea of the Foundation books is that it can predict on galactic scale what is going to happen, and so it's kind of like this plot of this episode of Dr. Bashir and the others kind of figuring out the future by like calculating odds. That's the premise of the Foundation books. If you ever want to read those sci-fi novels, Isaac Asimov is a classic sci-fi guy. Um, Isaac Asimov is also very interesting because he's basically the master of a short story format. Especially the first Foundation books are basically just a series of short stories collected together, and even the later books, which get more, get thicker and are more like a standard story, even they still are kind of like chunks, like
So
this chunk, this chunk, this chunk. Um, he's an interesting storyteller because he's more interested in his plots than his characters usually. So, but yeah,
Well, this
that's
idea of statistical probability and war isn't new to science fiction, and it always being that whole that ultimately the thing that defeats it is the human factor, right? Actually, Star Trek has done this before.
mhm.
In the original series, there were two episodes that dealt with this subject. There was A Taste of Armageddon and The Ultimate Computer. In A Taste of Armageddon, they go to this planet that is currently at war with, well, the main landmass is at war with another landmass, but they have calculated everything out. So at assigned times, certain number of people will walk into what are called disintegration booths and die as casualties of war for whatever side. But there is no war. There's not like bombs going off. There's not soldiers dressed up or anything like that. It's just you get a notice basically that says, "Oh, you're a casualty. Please report to wherever." And people were doing it, and they've been
Mhm.
doing it for a while. And Kirk and everybody's like, "What the hell is wrong with you people? Like, you're
Mhm.
killing yourselves for no reason." And then there's the Ultimate Computer, where they introduced the first thinking computer AI to run starships. So the whole point was to make crews completely obsolete. You wouldn't need to do that anymore. You would install what was called the M5 computer on the ship, and it
Mhm.
would do everything, all the exploration, any fighting, any of that. Well, the M5 computer, of course, goes rogue, destroys a bunch of stuff, and it takes that human factor that only Captain Kirk has to ultimately defeat
Not the
the
human
M5.
factor, it's
Oh
the
yeah,
Kirk factor. We
yeah,
need
that
to do this
exactly. It's
now if we can.
so yeah, they've done this. They've done this a lot, and like I said, that's a theme that we see a lot in sci-fi in general. This, if we allow computers to totally take over everything, it will always lead to a dystopian future. And the only way to stop it is to, inject that uncertainty of humanity into it.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting theory. It's one I've come to not like. I think because we do see it happen a lot, but also I find it like it's a little bit unnerving because the way that they present it is always like this is just something that happened. It was an outgrowth of technology and of war and whatever. And whenever these two major ideologies come together, you're going to get this monster, right? Um, but I guess the way that we have things in society already that kind of freak me out. And as we get into, AI already taking stuff over, I don't like how close we get to it. So I don't like to think about it sometimes. Um. Anyway.
Well, I just want to say this real quickly.
Yeah.
If you don't like the human factor being the exception to all that,
I think that's what it is. It's like I don't like how it always comes down to there's just this rogue human who just so happens to think just enough outside of the box that these countless computers can't attribute for that one individual,
right.
and it breaks the whole system. I mean,
Well,
that's
then
what the Matrix is too.
you would definitely like the first Foundation book, because that is definitely the premise, is that even human nature is accounted for in this mathematical thing that Dr. Selden has figured out. In book 2, there is a character who defies all that, but it's attributable not to like the character being super intelligent, but as having supernatural abilities that the system couldn't account for, but also that the system is not 100% perfect, but just, it's all probabilities
Yeah.
that they work with, and that they're probable, that the probabilities go off course in book 2 is what basically happens, to kind of give you a little heads up. But yeah, those are very interesting books. And the TV show totally threw that out. It went with this human character is so freaking awesome that they totally defy everything. This character is so awesome. You should totally love this character.
It's the Messiah character. Yeah, it's
the
Messiah character that we see in so many things. It's like it's always that way. It's always running that way, that we have these systems in place that have existed for however long they are, and then all of a sudden this one person comes along and inexplicably is able to upend the whole system. And again, it's inexplicable. There is nothing about what they do, what they say, that explains how they can break the system, and yet they do. And we're just supposed to think, oh, they're just that good, they're just that different. And I feel like that's ultimately lazy. Like, at least show me where they earned it. Show me where they were able to get to this point.
That's why the Foundation books are so interesting, because the whole premise is that no one individual is enough to like change the course of history. Like, the idea is that people are so granular in the scheme of the universe that, yeah, of course you can't change history. Once once the lens is pulled back far enough, it doesn't matter what little tiny issue you have on your little planet. You've pulled back too far for that lens to care. But the TV show did the exact opposite. They literally said, screw Isaac Asimov and his theory of the Foundation novels, and we're gonna do our own cliched storytelling.
So,
and
just on that point, because this is what I feel like also relates back to what we talked about in regards to the Count of Monte Cristo. I feel like what happens is we get writers and producers and corporate execs who get a hold of these materials, and it's they have a twofold problem. One, they don't want to tell the whole story, because often those stories are about more than just one thing.
Yes.
And the layers to them can often conflict with what the corporation may want. And since they're the ones footing the bill for it, they don't want to put a story about anti-establishment and anti-corporation on the air. So they've got to strip those parts out. That's one. Then the other part is, I do believe, and I think this is largely, I think this one is more the problem than the other thing I just said. I think they believe that people are dumber than what they really are.
Yes,
so
that's
they write to a dumb audience.
They dumb down, which is why I love Christopher Nolan, because he does the exact opposite. He's like, I'm here and I expect you to join me here, and you feel appreciative of his like drawing you in.
And that's what I feel like it used to be when we had, I know when I was in school, I don't know if you had these, but we had what was called Accelerated Reader. And it was a program where you read books, and each book was assigned a point value. And you would read the books, you would take the test, and if you passed the test, you got the points. The more points you got, it earned you certain things, and the ultimate goal was a pizza party. And that was when I read The Three Musketeers for the first time, not because I was interested in the book, but because I wanted the points. It was like 80 points.
Yep.
And so, and
That's
it was
why I
like
read
it
the
was
Count of Monte Cristo for the
right.
first time. Exact same
And it was
reason.
the
Yep.
most points, and it was like it took you 100 points to win a pizza party, and this one book was 80 points. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna read this. And it did take me a long time, don't get me wrong, but I ended up enjoying the book so much
Mhm.
and learning so much in reading the book that was also a more than equitable trade-off.
Exchange, yeah.
We don't do that anymore. I don't think that program exists in schools anymore, which is sad. But I feel like that's what happens. And then there have been multiple shows called The Three Musketeers. And if you watch them, all of that nuance of character and things like that, it's all been dumbed down.
Right.
A lot of that extra development is completely eliminated. And you get these kind of parodies of
Right.
the characters from the
Yeah.
book. And then if you
Mhm.
never read the book and this is all you ever watch, that's your Three Musketeers.
Right.
And that worries me. And I don't want to see that happen in things like Isaac Asimov's work. Yeah, I just like anything sci-fi. I especially things that I have grown up with. I hate to see that they treat them that way.
Right.
I worried so much about when they were going to do Dune yet again, if we were going to fall into that because, it would just be so easy. Let's not focus on the story. Let's just put a bunch of sexy people in the roles, and no one's going to care about the dialogue because everybody looks so good.
Right.
We're not worried about what Duncan Idaho says. He's got, it's Jason Momoa. Just,
Yeah.
let him flash his abs a couple of times and you'll forget
The
all
real
the
question
things.
that is, you're so right about that. It will, okay. When Dune Messiah comes out, because I know they're doing it, how they treat Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho, the Gola, the reborn like clone of a dead man, how he is treated, how his character, like he's basically the main character of that book.
Yeah.
It's not entirely, but roughly. He has a lot of POV moments, and that means you're going to have to switch from Paul to Duncan Idaho, played by Jason Momoa. Can they pull it off? That is going to be the real question, and we'll see how well they
Well,
pull it
I've
off.
already been kind of worried because I remember how the last movie ended and it left you with this feeling that Chani was going to be taking more of a central role in things. And the way that the story has gone, especially with her character and interaction with Paul, definitely different than the books. So
Yeah,
I don't know where they're going with that. I don't know why they're doing that.
well, what they did with
Um,
Chani is they basically, so if you read just Dune, the original story comes off as a traditional hero's journey.
mhm.
He's, on the outs. He is in the literal desert. He comes out and he wins and he's victorious. He's the hero. Dune Messiah flips that on its head and says that, actually, maybe Paul Atreides winning in the last book was a bad thing. And so Chani's character in the books is much more passive. She's just kind of there. But in the movies, they basically took her character and said, let's make her the one who's worried about all the things that could go wrong, because he himself is also more worried in the movie than in the book about the dangers of what are going to happen if he becomes, the Muad'Dib and all that. And so they basically take the theme of Dune Messiah and start introducing those themes in the movie, whereas the book wasn't quite there yet. And so Chani's character is the one that primarily gets changed for that reason.
Yeah.
Interesting idea. We'll have to see how they do with it. I mean, if Dune Messiah effectively pulls off the plot, I mean, it's going to be, if people who don't know the story come to that movie, it pissed people off when it was originally came out. Dune Messiah was definitely a kind of a slap in the face from Frank Herbert to his audience, being like, "You thought you liked Paul Atreides?"
Well, and that's what was so important to read the full series because so many of the characters do kind of like popcorn around with the overall ideology that they're working with,
Right.
and some especially the characters that you may have identified with in the first book, by the second or third book, you're like, nope.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah.
It's harder. And I actually like stories that have that kind of complexity. But like I was saying, I was worried that they weren't going to let it play out with the characters as it was written in the books. They've already started changing it up to make it, different characters, same theme, but it's a different character voicing that than what was originally written. So
Right.
whether or not you want to stay on the purest level of that is up to you.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Back to
Deep Space Nine.
next to Deep Space Nine.
Let's move to Far Beyond the Stars. Kind of jump ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Magnificent Ferengi is a fun episode. We can't jump too far because Waltz is in there, and Waltz is the
Oh
episode I was
yes,
talking
I'm
about
sorry.
where we
Yes.
had the unraveling of Dukat, and this
Right.
is where he is being taken to face tribunal, and Cisco is coming to testify against him. The ship is attacked, it goes down. These two make it to an escape shuttle, which crash lands on a rogue asteroid, satellite, whatever. Dukat rescues Cisco. Cisco is badly injured in the crash, and he is supposedly sending off a signal to hopefully be found and they be rescued.
Right.
But during this time, we see that Dukat is spiraling out. He's seeing things that aren't there, and he is very much wanting to convince Cisco that he and Cisco are the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a great episode how they worked Dukat's craziness and megalomania into this episode.
Yeah.
So
If Gul Dukat had already been beyond sort of redemption by this point because of joining with the Dominion and all that, and Ziyal dying, this is the cherry on top. This is there is no turning back. He truly well is a villain. He's embraced his darker sides of his personality. Whatever Dukat could have been is gone. He is the guy who now considers Cisco his true nemesis. And then all of his megalomania, as you just said, comes to the fore. Why don't the Bajorans love me and make me statues? Is this the one where he says, "Where's my statue"?
Yes, this is it. This is the one where he starts to compare everything. He's like, he breaks it down for Cisco. He's like, when I came to Bajor, the occupation had already been going on for 50 years.
Right.
It wasn't like I started it. I was just there to, administrate. And that's what I wanted to do. And I, in my wisdom and benevolence, saw that what they needed was a tender hand. Yeah. And I wanted to offer them this loving embrace. And every time I would reach out my hand, they'd snap it away. That's what he says. Yeah. And he goes, and so, I would give them this and there'd be a bombing. So then I have to do something, right? I can't just let it go unpunished, right? So again,
I just killed 100 random people.
I stayed my hand, right? 100 lives for 100 lives. That's fair, right? That's fair. And he goes,
it's crazy how this stuff comes back to your memory when you're talking about it.
He's like, but did they appreciate me at all? Did they think? Did they understand what I was trying to do? Did they give me even one statue? Just one?
Yeah.
He just goes looking at this man like, you're crazy. Like, of course he's crazy. Listen at him. And it's like his arguments, but you foreigner, you alien, you come in, you're their emissary, you're their leader, you're this, you're that. And I can't even get them to give me their savior, their benevolent father overlord, one statue. So Marc Alaimo does such a great job in this episode. Like, he's always been doing a great job, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But this totally detached, unhinged Gul Dukat is wonderful.
Well,
it's absolutely wonderful.
It really is. But I have to say, this is what was so funny about watching the What We Left Behind documentary, because Marc Alaimo is Gul Dukat. Like his whole
right.
bit about, did you guys really appreciate me? And they're like, what do you mean? We kept bringing you back.
That's what he kept saying. He's like, I just didn't feel like you guys appreciated me at all. It's like translation, Dukat still wants a statue. Like, someone should definitely get that man a statue and give it to him. I think that would be hilarious. If he just woke up one day. But you know what would be the best part? it wouldn't be a statue of Ducat, it'd be a statue of Marco Limo.
Oh, of
That
course.
would be hilarious.
Oh yeah.
And just have it in his yard, like, finally got your damn statue. Shut up, you know. But yeah, even in the documentary, he was still like, yo, I didn't feel like I was appreciated. And that's what Ira Stephen Bear, the showrunner, he says. He's like, we kept bringing you back, dude. You were
Yeah.
supposed to be like a
You were there
season
from
1.
episode 1 to the last episode. Like,
Right.
don't get us wrong here. Yeah.
You were supposed to kind of sort of be a one-off, but we loved you so much. We literally brought you back season after season after season.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, like,
This
I think
character had arcs to him. Again,
Yeah.
this is the pinnacle of the. He's done with being maybe redeemable in his weird,
Yeah.
creepy way. No, he's done.
this was the nail in the coffin
Yeah.
for that. And
Everything after this is him joining up with Paul Race. Like,
yeah, and
next
this
time we
and
see
that's
him,
what
he's a yeah.
and that's what Cisco says at the end of the episode. He's like, you know, when he's laying in sick bay, and I believe it's Dax comes in and talks to him, and he says, one thing I've realized is that no matter what, this ends with either Ducat dead or me. It's a him or me situation. There's nothing else can come from this. And that was the final realization, that there was going to be no more redemption attempts for Ducat. That was the writers telling us, because remember, we talked about this before. Ducat came off as so charismatic that people were actually liking him. And when the writers and stuff were finding out that the fans were like, we love Ducat, they were like, no, you're not supposed to love him.
Right.
And so they needed to kind of like nail it, that this is the bad guy.
Right.
And this is how they do it, which was
Right.
delivered beautifully between, again, Avery Brooks always delivers when he's in a scene. And just in the two of these guys locked together doing this was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now we can move on. The next episode was Who Mourns for Morn, but you know, that's just about Morn and his money and Quark trying to get it. To Far Beyond the Stars, which is far and away one of the best episodes of Trek, period. This is the episode, as you know, Cisco having visions. He goes back in time, we'll say. Is he dreaming? Is he transported? We don't know. He just wakes up and he is Benny Russell. And Benny Russell is a sci-fi writer in the, is it the 40s, the 50s, I think?
It says here
they were dealing with McCarthyism
53.
at the time. Yeah, so 50. Okay.
53 of New York City. Yep.
So yeah, and he's a sci-fi writer at a small magazine, and he gets an idea for a story and begins writing the incredible tales about the crew on this space station called Deep Space Nine, and the leader is a colored man named Ben Sisko.
Yeah.
And trouble ensues, of course, because he's writing these stories and he's got aliens and women and black people leading in these positions of power and authority, and it's unheard of. And the editor wants him to change it or they're not going to print it. They agree to print one of his stories, and then at the last minute, they pulp the story. They pulp the book, and he gets fired.
And to be clear, pulping as in they'd printed it and decided, nope, we're going to destroy it rather than
destroy it instead. They went through the whole process of printing it, binding it, and then said, nah. Destroyed it.
Yeah. Not just that. Like, that's just, I just want to be clear. That is a huge nail in the coffin kind of moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, exactly. That's insult to injury. It's one thing to say you're just not going to print it, but you let the man work on it, write it up, submit it, you formatted it, you printed it, you bound it, and in the last moment you said, nah.
Yeah.
And so you had it eviscerated.
Yeah.
Pulped, literally turned into mush.
Right.
The levels of petty that it would take to do something like that is, I don't know. It's something I can't even consider. Like, that's just awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. And it makes sense that he would have the breakdown that he does when you think about it. And, you know, a lot of other things happen to him in this episode. He gets beat by the police when the Jake character is killed. And that's the thing. We get to see everybody out of makeup. You know, all the actors are there. You know,
But they're not in their alien get-ups. Yeah.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yep. Martok
And
is the illustrator, and you're like, I recognize the voice, but
immediately upon hearing the voice, it's unmistakable.
yeah.
Man can't hide his voice ever.
Yeah.
Um,
That
you,
growl is so great. Yeah.
mhm. Mark Alimo and um,
Wayoon. Oh, I'm
uh,
sorry.
Jeffrey Combs play
Yeah.
the police officers.
Yep.
Um, Worf is there as a baseball player, up and coming in the Negro leagues.
Right.
Cassidy is there. She's a waitress, but she's also Benny Russell's fiance,
Yeah.
and they've been waiting. They've been saving up to get married.
Yeah. Just to be clear, as you mentioned all this, none of the characters are like a one-for-one recreation of what's happening on Deep
Yeah,
Space Nine.
yeah,
Like,
that's true. They're not playing analogs of their characters in Deep Space Nine at all. They are
right.
completely different roles.
The only one, Cassie is Benny Russell's girlfriend. That's the only thing that might seemingly be comparable. And Wayoon and Gul Dukat are the villains, but that's it. There's no clear one for one. This character is a doctor
Right.
or anything like that. It's yeah. And I think that's really interesting because the reason I bring that up, this whole story is completely unique to itself. It's like a vision dream that Sisko has. And by the way, the autobiography of Benjamin Sisko, which we need to talk about at some point, we'll probably do it, I think, after we finish the recaps.
Yes.
It does have a brief moment that ties this episode into that. Just to be clear. Yeah, this episode is interesting because it's not, nothing about this episode has to reflect on Deep Space Nine, other than that when Sisko wakes up from his dream, he feels moved by it.
Yes.
Trying to kind of.
It's a transcendent moment for Ben Sisko. And as
he was
Joseph,
thinking of quitting, and
yes,
he has a dream of someone who's like, no, I wasn't allowed to succeed, do what I needed to do what I wanted to do. You need to, like, Sisko needs to do everything he can because in another life he couldn't have done something. Is that, would you agree that that's the kind of the interpretation we're getting from it?
yes, and it comes to the episode. In the episode, there's a character, the priest, who's outside, and that's played by Joseph, who is Ben's father.
Right.
And they have an interesting little exchange, and I was going to read that right here, where that's what Ben is talking about. Benny is talking about is how tired he feels, and how he's ready to give up. He's been struggling, he's been fighting this thing for so long, and Joseph tells him, he's like, it's not like, you may be tired, but it's not on you to walk away from this. You can't walk away from this. And he begins the quote, and he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. And that is kind of like that revelation and also foundational moment for the character Benny Russell, because he's later on, because he was going to give up when they first told him, write something different. And so he was going to give up, but instead, after speaking with Joseph and hearing this and thinking about it, he then writes 5 more incredible tales and gets in trouble for it.
Right.
And gets in trouble for it. They told him, yeah, write something else. Just put this idea out of your mind. It's great. It's wonderful. Yeah, but we're never going to print it. Give us something else. And he said, nah, here's 5 more. And yeah, and it's that same kind of message that, as we were talking about something else earlier, that transcendent moment for Benny Russell that informs him of how to continue. And then it works not only for Benny Russell, but now that Sisko has lived through it and experienced it, it allows him to also keep going, to finish the course, to keep the faith, as it were. Again, I love things like this, the way that they can make those kind of connections through the characters and give you like such a positive perspective, especially when you're facing seemingly insurmountable odds and the kind of like hardship and oppression that these characters were going through during those times.
Yeah.
And we have to, of course, talk about the ending scene, which is after Ben Russell had been beaten.
Mhm.
He can't work. He convalesces at home for several weeks, it seems, and then or not several weeks. I think he's out for like maybe 2 weeks, and then he finally comes back, and it's the day that the story is supposed to be arriving,
Mhm.
and finds out that it's been pulped,
He's been
and they're going to
fired.
fire him, and he quits. He's like, "You're not going to fire me. I quit," and he just lays it all out. I'm a human being. You can deny me all you want, but that story, that future that I created, it exists. It's real. I did it.
Right.
And he has a complete, breakdown about it. And it's about more than just the story that they're not going to print. It's about like the struggle, the fight that he's been in.
Right.
And it's the classism, it's the racism, it's all of it culminating in this moment of a person saying, "You can't deny what I've done. You can try to deny me all you want to, but I'm here. I'm right here. You can't keep doing this." And
Right.
it's an absolutely wonderful scene. And he loses it, and the other actors around lose it. And there's, even if you watch closely, Kira, who catches him as he falls, she cries. And
Right.
apparently it was real. So I love
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, one of my favorite episodes. It wasn't always my favorite episode. I'll tell you that. As a kid, I don't think I understood it
Right.
very well. But then as I've aged and have watched it several times.
Yeah, part what I was trying to get to in part with that whole like this episode is so unique is to say that is like because it is not it is in no way a traditional Star Trek story.
It's certainly not, and
We've
it's
had Picard
oof.
dress up as Holmes, I'm sorry, Sherlock, yeah, Sherlock Holmes and stuff like that. Like they've gone to the holodeck to pretend to be these classic characters before, to experience the 19,
But it was a
50s
holodeck
or
program, and
twenties.
they were in control, and they could turn it off whenever they want to. This
Exactly.
was a very real, very lived experience, and um, unheard of storytelling in the 90s.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I don't think another show has done an episode like this. Not in the Trek franchise, and I can't think of any other show that has talked about religion. Well, there's some religion here, but it's mainly about race in
Yeah.
this episode. I can't think of another show that's done
Yeah,
something like
that's
that.
actually an interesting point. I don't feel like any other show would have anything to say on the level that this episode has to say. The whole point of this episode is to bring up the racism of the 1950s and to kind of it's again using the Star Trek format to talk about the issues that happened in the 1950s about racism and Afrofuturism, as the Wikipedia article brings
Mhm.
up, stuff like that. Um, yeah, like I can't think of another like when would Picard go back? Like you'd have to go back to the like time of King Arthur to have anything of the sort, of anything that could have anything comparable to complain about, to say like here's an issue that needs to be addressed, modern audience, but um,
So,
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
mean,
yeah,
you're right, but it's I guess you would say it would be something more about moving the conversation forward. Like, this episode obviously uses a past setting to talk about a contemporary issue and kind of
right.
the foundational aspects of that contemporary issue. But then we haven't really done anything to where we would like talk about it as to how things have progressed and whether or not you agree there is still an issue and how to continue to move forward. And as a franchise that has a very diverse fan group, um, some might say it's not important to continue to acknowledge those things. Some would say that it's even more important for a show like Star Trek to continue to acknowledge those things because they are things that happen in our lives now. To whatever degree you're affected by that is, I guess that's a part of the conversation to be had, but it is something that still happens. So it's just like, how do we stop always framing it in this odd old context and make sure that we're appropriately addressing the issues that we have today. And Star Trek is always good for that because it's set so far in the future that doing a flashback to the 2000s is entirely possible. They could do that, but they haven't. And again, like we said, there's no contemporary shows on that really deal with it either. So I don't know. It's I don't know how you would go about doing it, and especially with not you're wanting to appropriately address the issue, but not in such a way that you're saying um, all of this is 100% factual. You must believe us. These are horrible whatevers, but also not totally dismissing and saying these people are imagining things. We don't have this issue at all. This is all made up. Neither of those two things are true. And so trying to find the appropriate way to address it and um, not just harp on it, but also
Mhm.
present possible solutions, I guess,
Right.
is always difficult. So I think that's why they just are like, we're not gonna do it at all. Never mind. Bright lights, shiny things. We're done.
Pew, pew.
Yeah. Give me more bright lasers going pew 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 pew. All right, good, great. No moral issues anymore. Just hot people in uniforms and guns. Done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, go watch that episode. I would say everybody go watch that episode. Far Beyond the Stars is just fantastic storytelling. Um, we got a few sillier episodes, or not, I shouldn't necessarily say silly. The next two don't really do much for us. We have One Little Ship and Honor Among Thieves. One Little Ship, the runabout gets shrunk. It's got Worf, or not Worf, but it's got Jadzia, O'Brien, and Bashir in it. The Defiant gets taken
Mhm.
over by some Jem'Hadar, and they help out with their tiny ship. That's great. We have Honor Among Thieves. This is an O'Brien episode. O'Brien,
Like
who's
exclusively
yeah,
O'Brien. Like no one. I don't even know if anyone else even appears. But keep
Cisco's
going.
in
Yeah.
it. Cisco and O'Brien are in it, and that's in the very beginning of the episode. And O'Brien, no, I'm sorry, Cisco and Bashir are in it. Bashir comes to Cisco to be like, "Hey, O'Brien went away and was supposed to be back, and he's not. Something's wrong." And Cisco's like, "I didn't even know O'Brien left. What are you talking about?" And then Bashir's like, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to tell you, but he's actually been contacted to do covert ops." And Cisco's like, he's doing what? Like he's not supposed to." And that's what gets him to investigate. And we find out he has been placed into the Orion Syndicate, and he has
Mhm.
made friends with the man, and he's trying to unravel some issues.
Right.
Um, Interesting episode, but again, it doesn't do anything for what else we have going on. And it's the first time we've ever seen, like in Deep Space Nine anyway, life outside the Federation and dealing with the Orion Syndicate. But yeah, a do nothing episode.
Right.
We next come to Change of Heart, which is an interesting one where Jadzia and Worf are put on the mission together. First mission together as husband and wife. They are tasked with picking up a Cardassian defector who's
Mhm.
going to lay all the Dominion plans bare. They
Mhm.
go to the planet for the rendezvous. Jadzia is attacked and wounded, but not killed. But the wound gets progressively worse to the point where it's clear she's going to die. Worf decides to continue on the mission. He gets just about there, he makes it to the rendezvous point, but
Yeah.
the Cardassian soldier was late. He
Yeah.
wasn't there. So Worf backtracks, gets Jadzia, and
Saves her
saves her life and takes her home. This leads
at the
to a
expense of the
reprimand.
Cardassian.
Yes, because the Cardassian soldier did later appear.
Right.
Since they were not there, they didn't stay away from him, obviously. He is caught trying to sneak back into the compound where he is executed.
Right.
This leads to a reprimand for both, and Cisco tells Worf, most likely this means that you will never be captain because of this. So
Yeah.
you just ruined your career doing it. But
For
then he says,
Jadzia Dax of all people.
Mhm. But he says, if it had been my wife, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, Cisco can
So
appreciate what happened.
yeah. So there's that episode. Then we come to the creepiest episode, I'm going to say, of season 6, but really kind of all of Trek.
Wrong's darker
Wrong's
than
darker
death
than
or
death or
night.
night.
Yeah.
And this is Kira gets the opportunity to use an orb to go back in time to
Confirm
befriend her
Ducat's
own mother,
claim.
right? And
Yes.
confirm Ducat's claim that he and her mother were lovers. And now keep in mind, this whole time,
He's been
Ducat has been
hitting on
trying
Kira.
to seduce Kira. And it makes it seem like not only did he have an affair with Kira's mother, but he knew she was Kira's mother and has been pursuing her this whole time. And also, how old is Ducat? Because in this episode, we see young baby child Kira and full-on adult Ducat with the mother, who is at least, what would you say? She was in her
I'd
late
say she's in her
30s, early
30s.
40s. Yeah,
I'd
right?
say Ducat is in his 30s, presumably late 30s, probably. Her mother is probably mid to late 30s. Kira is probably a teenager. So yeah,
No, she was a
Ducat,
baby. We see her in the episode.
is
We
she a
see her.
baby?
Yeah, she's little.
I
She
thought she
has
was a
they
teenager.
have they have two children. They have a boy and a girl. She's little baby Kira. She's like 3 or 4 in the episode.
Is she really that young?
And she has an older brother. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I thought she was like 10 or something. But
No, you're thinking of the older brother. She had an older brother. She was little.
okay. Well, anyway, yeah. I mean, Ducat makes it sound like when he first says it that like her mother was like into it, and it turns out that she's forced to do so, but that she kind of comes to accept the situation, that the benefits of being Gold Ducat's paramour. I mean, her father says it in a message to her. He's like, "Yeah, we're getting food. We're getting
Right.
benefits from this arrangement."
Well, and that's the part of it that also is kind of creepy, because they do a good job of insinuating that he knows what she's doing. He's just like, because I believe in the message he says to her, we've been receiving extra food. We know that it's because of whatever it is that you're doing. So don't worry about us. We're okay. Do what you need to do, is pretty much how that message goes.
Right.
So it's like he's not saying it, but he is saying it. It's like, I know how these Cardassians are. You're a beautiful woman. We were starving. At least now our children are living.
Right.
There.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally
Yeah.
the worst form of like there's being forced to do something, and then there's putting a gun to your child, to a child's head, and say, you will do this thing or else your child gets it. Like, yeah, it's a dark episode. We've already said Gold Ducat is proven himself to be the darkest of the dark, but this like puts the nail in the coffin. Like, we didn't know this dirty, dark detail for this whole show. We like Gold Ducat was the evil former, leader and, ruler of, the station when it was what did they call it? When the Cardassians Terok Nor. Like, he was always a baddie, but like again, like he is revealing just how dirty he's just a bad dude. Just a bad dude. That's all you can really say.
And so I looked it up just real quick. We do see young Kira Nerys in this episode. She is 3 years old. She's 3.
Okay. Wow.
3-year-old Kira,
so
while full-grown adult in command.
Yeah. That means that he was in command
Ducat
of the station for at least 25-ish years.
Yeah, 25 to 30 years.
He's been in charge long enough that he can do this with her mother, long enough for Kira to grow up and be a rebel. Because she's already 20-something when the show begins, which means they had
I believe that Kira is 30 years old when Deep Space Nine first starts.
Is this episode saying that Gold Ducat was in charge of Terok Nor at the time of this?
Wow, so that gets back to another thing that Ducat says, which is BS, because he says that when he took over Empire, Terok Nor, the occupation was in full go and was almost over. But it's
Yeah.
like, no,
No,
the
yeah.
occupation occurred for 50 years.
And you
You
were
were in
there for
charge for
30-ish years.
at least 30 of those years.
You've been around for at least half as long as the occupation's been going on, my
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, brutal. And it just goes to show, like, I mean, the word comfort women is the term
That's what
that's
they call
used.
them. Yes, they're
And
called
that was a
comfort women.
legitimate thing that apparently the Japanese did to the Chinese women during World War II is, hey, we're occupying. I mean, I'm sure every awful conquest was accompanied with this. It's like, hey, ladies, you don't get killed like
I
the men
know
do.
that
We
it
just
was.
take you back with us.
I know that in World
to-
War II, which I believe was their idea, that they used the idea in this episode from that. In World War II, the Germans had comfort women. There were Jewish women who were comfort women for the Nazi soldiers. And after the war was over, a lot of those women were cast out in their cities and stuff. A lot of them were labeled as collaborators. They had their heads shaven. A lot of them were beaten, and again, they were exiled. They were driven out of town. Because they had bedded down with, and a lot of them had children with Nazi soldiers. So,
right.
So that's definitely a thing that happened across multiple wars and engagements, conflicts in history. That's been done,
Right.
So, they had a lot of historical context for which to pull for this episode. Now, getting to the point of Kira Maru, who is Kira Nerese's mother, which is important to note that Bajorans do the name thing backwards.
Right.
Last name first, then first name. So
right.
Nerese is Kira's first name. Last name is actually Kira.
Right.
There you go. So her mother, Maru, whether or not she truly got to a point where she not only enjoyed being Ducat's comfort woman, but also that she was in love with him. I don't know if they totally sold me in this episode that she was in love with him. They did sell me on her enjoying not being in a prison camp and not being hungry and not having to worry about her children.
Yes, I can. This episode made me believe that she could be someone who would accept some of the. Let me put it this way, she had a privileged position in this weird, awful, backwards, terrible situation. She's allowed to live on the station. She's dressed nicely, food regularly, treated well by Ducat. But again, the whole point of it is he's humiliating her and her husband and her family and using all of that as a leverage to get what he wants, which is submission. He enjoys forcing people to submit to him, and
he very much does. He very much enjoys making people submit to him, and in particular, he loves subjugating Bajoran women.
Yes, he absolutely is enamored with the idea of making Bajoran women somehow appreciate him, love him.
I was going to say beyond appreciate him. I think that he's got this.
It is love, but
about them loving him.
Well, I totally understand the loving, but I think I want to emphasize the appreciate. Like, appreciate how good he is, how wonderful, how powerful. Oh, thank you, Gul Dukat. If it wasn't for you, like, that's the love and how he wants it expressed. If you hadn't saved us poor Bajorans from our backwardness,
And it's even what we see in the episode, like when the comfort women are first introduced to the other Cardassian officers, Kira is watching as Maru is being approached and seduced, persuaded by Ducat, and the other officer that's sitting next to her begins to tell her word for word what Ducat is going to say.
Right.
And he's like, I've seen it 1,000 times. This is his game. This is his act.
Right.
And so he comes off as so gallant. He comes in, he saves the other girl. Right. And then he goes to Maru and he's like, I would never treat a woman like that, and you're
Right.
so wonderful and special and whatever. And the guy's just reading him line for line for
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, it's a game, it's a con that he does because
The
he
question
wants
really
them.
is, what does Gul Dukat do with the women he's already done this with? Does he throw them away? Does he
Well, we
send
already
them
know
on
the
their
answer.
way?
We already know the answer to that, and he does. He throws them away. He sends them away. Remember, in another episode, Indiscretion, Dukat comes to Kira to ask her for help because a ship that crashed a long time ago, he wants to know what happened to the woman that was on that ship.
Right.
And her name was Tora Naprim.
Right.
And they find that she died, but before she died, she had a daughter,
Right.
Tora Zial.
Right.
And Zial was Dukat's daughter. That's what he does. She got pregnant, and to save him, because we know that Cardassians are very family oriented. And so if she had his child, he would have been obligated to take care of her. So he sent Tora Naprim away because he didn't want her to give birth to his child and everybody know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kira makes him acknowledge Zial, which then leads to his fall from grace. When they
Right.
find out that he's had this child out of wedlock and with
With
the
a
Bajoran and
Bajoran,
everything
yeah.
else, his wife leaves him. She takes his other children. He loses his position in the military. All these things happen to him, all because he fathered a child outside of his family unit.
Right.
So, yeah, big thing.
Yeah.
And so, but also, it's so funny that they put such an emphasis on family, considering all of their officers are out here sleeping with these
Oh, I'm sure it's one of
other.
those things of like everyone knows it's happening, but as soon as it like becomes like, as soon as you need to make someone disappear or you need to have them, no, we need Gul Dukat done away with. We need to move him out. So let's reveal that. I mean, everyone else has done it, but let's reveal that he did it. And
Well, and we know that that's true too because we saw the episode where the Bajorans had adopted that Cardassian boy Rugal,
mm-hmm.
and his father uh, at first didn't acknowledge him, but then he did acknowledge him.
Oh,
But
that's
then when
right.
he finds out that someone was actually plotting to use the information to blackmail him, and he now found a way to get the upper hand on them, he was more interested in executing the upper hand than he was in actually getting his son back.
Right.
And so the boy actually goes back to live with his adoptive Bajoran parents,
Right.
not with his found Cardassian father.
Right.
So yeah, they're very much about, oh well, this is the honorable thing to do up until it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
So
schemy bastards, I think is the term.
yes, I think that is the appropriate term for them. This leads us into, what time is it? Okay, so we've been
We're
doing
about
this
at
for
the
a
hour
bit.
30 mark.
Yeah, we are. The next 3 episodes are
Ooh.
very good
Ooh.
episodes, and I don't want
Yeah.
to try to rush them.
Yeah. All right. We'll come back
So
to
we're
them
gonna,
again next week.
we will stop here. But I tell you what, just so that this next time that we're prepared, we will go ahead and already say that we will be doing kind of an at-length episode, and then we will try to get through all the rest of season 6 in the next one. We should
we'll
be
do the
able
rest
to,
of
but
season 6. We'll do part of season 7 the week after, and we'll do the finale of season 7, whatever how many weeks that is in the future. Because like the last 10 episodes, of course, deserve their own special attention.
yeah.
So yeah, season 7 requires, I guess, 2 episodes from us. So we'll finish up season 6 next week. We'll do season 7 as 2 episodes. I think that makes sense. And that puts us to the end of the year, and we can do whatever we want after that. So
yeah. Okay, guys. So please feel free to leave any questions, comments that you have on the episode. We'll be checking all that stuff, of course, later on in the week. Also, tentatively, I know I keep saying this, I think the second week in a row that I've said this, episodes will be available on various podcast streaming platforms. We got a lot to catch up on for the releasing. Finally got things looked at. Looked like they had changed some security features, which kept stuff from posting, and a bunch of other technical algorithm nonsense, which I'm not even going to start to go into right now. But basically, they just lifted a lot of those security things for me. So hopefully that means that I can get everything back up and streaming. I'm not going to try to release every single episode we have in our back catalog to get us caught up. That's entirely too much. But what I will be doing is trying to release at least 3 episodes a week to try to get us to a point where we can be caught up. So that process will begin tomorrow, which will be Monday the 8th. So by the end of the week, which would be the 13th, if everything goes well, there should be 3 episodes you can go back and listen to. Okay?
Gotcha.
So that's the plan. But other than that, guys, thanks again for tuning in. You know where to find us if you want to find us. And hopefully we will catch you next time. And until next time, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.